speaking with me, Tarun Nangia. Today is the part 2 of our flagship series that we do on the incoming Chief Justice of India. This is titled Justice Bhushan Gavai as Chief Justice of India, Opportunities and Suggestions. And I want to welcome today my eminent panel. Let me welcome Justice Arjun Kumar Sikri. He's one of India's leading arbitrators. And of course, you all know, but let me also formally introduce. He has served as a judge of the Supreme Court of India. He has served as the Chief Justice of the Punjab and Haryana High Court and also the Delhi High Court. He is also currently sitting judge at the Singapore International Commercial Court and a leading arbitrator. Good to see you and looking forward to your refined views on various topics, including now this one. As always, I have with me one of India's leading commercial counsels at the city of Delhi, senior advocate Parag Tripathi, who also dabbles in a bit of poetry when he has free time. So we will request his indulgence on the show on that one also. We also have Mr. Ryan Karanjawala. He is managing partner of Karanjawala and Company, one of India's leading law firms at the Supreme Court of India. Given the kind of regularity which his firm appears in Supreme Court in various courts on any given day on a day-to-day basis, I think we could look for some anecdotes given his experience in this area. Good to see you. At the outset, Mr. Karanjawala, I was very sort of want to know, because in these 40-45 years that your firm has been doing, you would have seen and got feedback on so many judges, their temperaments, how they are. And when you hear that Justice now Gavai is now sort of coming from actually from the city of Bombay, now taking over as Chief Justice of India, your first few years, because you're half Bombayite, you studied at the GLC in Bombay.
So, Justice Gavai's story, if you study it in somewhat detail, is the Indian judicial equivalent of the American phrase from log cabin to White House, which they used and applied to Abraham Lincoln. Justice Gavais has been a story where he has come up from somewhere down the bottom of the ladder and reached the very top. But like Abraham Lincoln, though he sits in the apex seat of the apex court, his thoughts, his concerns are still, even today, for the people at the bottom of the ladder. Because he is a person who believes, as a judge, in affirmative action, in being pro-poor, in being pro-impoverished, in reaching out to people from the lower stratas of society. And his tenure will be particularly interesting when we see it and watch it from that particular angle. The one problem that Justice Gavai will face as the Chief Justice of India is that his tenure is a limited one. 6 months is not long enough to do as much as most Chief Justices would like to do. But I have two suggestions for him right at the outset, which he could utilize in ensuring that his tenure is as effective as possible. And that is to use what I would call the double A method. What is the double A method? First, utilize artificial intelligence to its maximum. So what he could well do is today ask the registry to say, all right, out of the 100, 200 batch matters, or 500, I don't know, there may be even 5,000 batch matters which are in the roster of the Supreme Court still to be heard. Use artificial intelligence to ascertain which of these matters, if disposed of earlier, will have the greater impact. Today, when you punch these kind of questions into an AI format, and our firm has just started using it, so we have an idea of it, you'll immediately get answers that you never thought of. So suddenly he will find that he is given 1, 2, 3, maybe 10 or 12, 15 batch matters, which he can tackle in his limited tenure of 6 months. So that's one. He should use artificial intelligence. Secondly, unfortunately, he takes over when there is a vacation. So that vacation also has to be utilized. The vacation can well be utilized by simply saying, all right, these are the 10 matters I hear. Fix them during the vacation court, not for hearing, but for directions. So you fix all these matters for directions. so that when the court reopens, you can start pell-mell and you can go straight away to the issues at hand. In that way, you waste no time at all. The second double A, which I was talking about, is something I've suggested in the past. The courts do not use the concept of the amicus curiae enough. For example, normally an amicus is appointed in a court where they find that there is a particular problem and they appoint a senior counsel as an amicus to assist the court. I'm suggesting one ahead. What they could well do is each of these batch matters would have one senior and maybe 2-3 competent junior counsels as amicuses. And our bar is replete with talent among the junior counsel who can step forward and assist the senior counsel in assisting the court in coming to the quickest and best decision. Just offhand, if I were to name a few people, so many of my friends' children, Justice Sikri's son, Saket, would be an excellent amicus curiae as a junior. My friend Mukul, his two sons, Nikhil, Samir, Rajiv Naya's son, Karthik, Rohinton Nariman's daughter, Neenu Nariman. There are so many. Justice Sikri has heard them all appear and seen them all appear before him, except, of course, Karthik, who he couldn't. Saket, who he couldn't. But you can see that if you appoint these juniors as amicuses to assist the senior counsel, then what happens is a large part of the court's time is saved. The amicuses frame all the questions that are required in advance, give it to the court, and the whole hearing is streamlined. So I think these are two things that he can put to effective use immediately, utilize the vacation time, and take on his chief justiceship. I have one or two other suggestions to make, but I'll make them later on in the debate.
Thank you for that opening comment. I'll go to Justice Sikri for his opening comment on this issue. Of course, you both, when you were in Supreme Court, he served in the Bombay High Court those days. So, of course, you would have the opportunity to interact him being a Supreme Court judge when he was in the High Court. Your opening comment on Justice Bhushan Gavai as Chief Justice of India.
Yeah, Tarun, you are right. When I was in Supreme Court, now I remember when you asked me this question, my first interaction with him. I had gone to Nagpur to deliver GL Sanghi Memorial Lecture. It was in the National Law School, Nagpur, where they had introduced this lecture series, and mine was the first lecture. And at that time, he was the judge in the he was sitting in the Nagpur bench of the Bombay High Court, and he had come there to attend the lecture, and immediately thereafter we had lunch in the High Court. So I found a person with much warmth, the way he met and the way we interacted, etc. I think he may be either the senior most or almost in seniority, first, second, or third judge at that time in the Nagpur bench. So therefore, he had made all those arrangements for the delicious lunch we had and his hospitality, which I enjoyed. And in that 1 year or 1 hour or 1.5 hours time when we sat next to each other and had a lot of conversation on various subjects, and thereafter we became friends. And in the Supreme Court, I had the occasion to go through some of his judgments also given as Bombay High Court, which had come to me in our bench in appeal. So I found that, yes, he is an accomplished judge. There is no doubt about it. Coming from humble background, as Rohinton has said, Ryan has said, if I may tell you in brief, as far as his personality is concerned, he is an accomplished judge. There is no doubt about it, and he has proved to be so. And he also knows his job as a judge very well, that a judge has not to decide strictly on the basis of strict legal principles only, but it is ultimately the justice which is to be delivered, which is by the apex court. So, of course, he goes by the letter of law, by what the law permits. At the same time, yes, how the justice should be pregnated with the empathy, compassion, and mercy, etc., wherever the situation requires, and how the justice is to be molded according to that. He knows that that very well. I say that every judge should have some sense of fairness. It has to be a lot of fairness in our judicial action, and more importantly, the sixth sense of justice. In a particular case outcome where justice lies. And therefore, we have to, again, I repeat, we have to go as per the law, but then arrive at the justice in that process. He knows that process very well. And another thing, as I always say, I have said, and I have in my writings also, I have said that the major functions, two functions of particularly in a democracy, constitutional democracy, and to Supreme Court of India, judge are, one is that to uphold the constitution and the laws, which is very, very important, and constitutionalism, etc. And the second is to bridge the gap between the law and the society. That means to do social justice. And he very well aware of these functions also, which he has so far undertaken this job remarkably well. So therefore, a person like this, and when he is now becoming a chief justice, so he has to first lead by example. So on judicial side, he is going to continue to do that. We are very much aware of this. And I saw he has given one interview, I think yesterday or day before, only in Bar and Bench, just before, because now he has become chief justice, he has already taken oath, where he says that I'll give prime importance to social justice. So this message coming from the Chief Justice to the entire judiciary, because he's not only the head of Supreme Court, he's the head of the entire judiciary. And another thing which I'll come to that. So this is the judicial part. Otherwise, when it comes to now administration of justice, and now today he's the as a head of the judiciary, and what he's concerned about it, which he has said in that interview also, that look, it's not he has emphasized upon the infrastructure, and he has said that it is not the infrastructure of the Supreme Court or the high courts, because most of the high courts are also having good infrastructure, etc., but we lack this at the subordinate level or in the district. So he has given emphasis on that. So that is in his mind, that it should be improved. And 4 or 5 things as Chief Justice he has himself highlighted. First, I'll come to that, and then I'll, like Ryan, give my suggestion what additionally he could do in my opening remarks. He says, I'm concerned about the pendency of the cases. That pendency, and again, he talks not only of the Supreme Court, but the subordinate courts and the high courts also, and how that has to be. Because this is one thing which is becoming, it is assuming more and more difficult proportions as well, because arrears are increasing. Of course, as again, I will say, Ryan has said in 5-6 months, how much he can do, but that he has suggested the way which was in my mind also. I'll come to that. But then he has himself highlighted. As I said, he has highlighted on the infrastructure. He has again in his interview said, he had said at other place also 3-4 days ago, and Bar and Bench also, which is very important, is about the credibility of judiciary. And when he talks about the credibility of judiciary, it is not only, again, I would say Supreme Court, of course. In Supreme Court is because it is supreme, and the people, everybody looks at Supreme Court. So that is of prime importance. But then again, credibility all over, particularly high courts and the way some incidents have taken place, etc. So he has, I think, that in mind, and he says that I'll ensure how it is enhanced. So that is again very, very good thing. And he has also talked about the appointments. And because there's so many vacancies in the High Court, even at the district courts, etc., how he's going to do. So he has also touched upon that. So having said that, so what I'm trying to say here is that it's not a person about whom we are talking who doesn't know his job. He knows his job, he's conscious of this, and he has already thought about it. So he's already made his, he has already done his homework in what way he will go. And another thing which is in that interview, which I read, was very important, that he says that I will immediately after becoming judge, I'm going to talk to all my colleagues in the Supreme Court, going to have opinions from them on all these issues, how we should. So therefore, it's not that because we have always one complaint that any Chief Justice who comes, he has good intentions, he has good agenda, but then they go off their own. without consulting others, or maybe consulting one or two, but he wants to consult each and every judge in the Supreme Court and wants to have the views of everybody so that he can come out with some better results and how these ideas are to be implemented in a better way. So having said that, and about as well as these issues are concerned, how he is going to deal with, he has said so. And but I can say that in his that two ways again of looking at it in his short tenure of 6 months, how he can on judicial side. Yes, we have this problem of arrears, as I've said. But then, apart from that, we may be that what kind of cases should be given primacy or priority, etc., in the Supreme Court or in the High Courts. Except we know that, like, look, he has already talked about the this social justice. So, social justice includes doing justice for those who are marginalized section of the society. Then we can include the persons who are disabled, include persons who are Dalits, and even those from, army, etc., or pension cases, cases of elderly persons, going by their age, going by the age of case as well. If case is old, it should be decided first. So these are all some of the aspects which has to be seen. And another aspect which now I will like him to do is that, look, as you know that I have spoken a lot about that on your shows also, law and economics. So therefore, there are certain aspects of our court cases which have lot of bearing and impact on the economy, or on the growth of economic growth of the nation. So judiciary has to equally contribute in its while deciding those cases. So therefore, this also should be kept in mind, that which are those kinds of commercial cases, whether this is arbitration or any other kinds of cases, which have to be given priorities either at the High Court level or Supreme Court level, how it should be done. And I'll come to that again here, when it comes to the implementation with the less number of judges and his tenure of 6 months only, I had in mind, which Ryan has already said, use of AI. But then these are the things which he has to. And I will say again another thing, which one should, and as Chief Justice, he should lay more stress on that as well, is the judicial education or the training of the judges, particularly domain expertise. We have our National Judicial Academy, but then it's okay, it's given to a particular director. And nowadays, good thing is our one retired Supreme Court judge is the director. But then at the same time, much more emphasis should be laid on that, because judicial training is very, very important for various reasons. It's not the time to deal with all this. But then there are again two kinds of plans which can be made in the whole process. One is that during his 6 months tenure, what he's going to do, that short-term plan. And another is that I think I had earlier also said that, look, unlike other countries in India, we have chief justices for very short tenure, whether it is 6 months or is 1 year or even 1.5 years, etc. That doesn't give enough tenure for any chief justice to bring judicial reforms. Unlike I said in Singapore, the chief justice became chief justice at the age of 52. So with the normal age also 65, he will have the tenure of 13 years, which is extendable by almost 5 years term, because his predecessor went up to the age of 75. So a person with 13 years, 15 years, or 20 years of chief justiceship, and that is the position in America also. If they want to bring judicial reforms, they have so much time for them to do all that, and leadership. But here that is not there. So what should be done? The committee should be formed of successive chief. He can take 3 or 4, 5 chief justices. The good thing is, like today, Justice Oak is retiring after a few days, and then Justice Nagratna would come. So out of these, he plus 4 judges, out of those 5, next out of those 4, 3 are going to be chief justices. So therefore, and take 1 or 2 other who are going to become chief justices, like Justice Vishwanathan, Justice Nasimha, who are really competent and who know about the Supreme Court functioning, etc. They have been practicing in Supreme Court for so long. So therefore, develop a strategy of judicial reform on a long-term basis. It may be a 5 years policy, 7 years policy, 10 years, what you want to be. And you have everybody knows the issues or which we are confronted with, and we also know what could be the methods which can be adopted to do that. But then each Chief Justice comes and he or she has, as of today, there's no she as well, Supreme Court Chief Justice. After when Justice Nagratnam come, then we will have a female Chief Justice. But every Chief Justice comes with his plan, which he does for 6 months, 8 months. The new Chief Justice comes, then he just says that, no, I have my own ideas, will do. So therefore, every plan they are able to work for a few months only. And there's no continuity, which is, I think, is the main reason because of which we are not able to bring judicial reforms. And therefore, if all Chief Justices and then they plan this strategy on long-term basis, which is continued by successive Chief Justices, and in this whole process, AI would play a very, very important role. Apart from what Ryan has said, and in which it can be. But otherwise, today, if you see that artificial intelligence, it is not only for your case management, grouping of the cases, etc. It is not only court management. It is even, it can prepare a summary of the cases, and it can even give you the results, etc. Of course, I'm not saying in Supreme Court one can't go by what the AI is bringing the results, and it has also come to the notice that in many other countries, some of the judgments which they have delivered, AI has delivered and given the ready text, and some of the citations which were never the cases decided, and those are the citations there. They call it hallucination of the AI. So we don't want that kind of, but short of that AI can play a tremendous role in, and technology plus. Actually, Susskind has written a book on future of courts, which is, he says that how technology can bring. And I remember on ODR immediately after this COVID, Niti Aayog had set up a committee on dispute resolution, and I was the chairperson, and we produced that report which we have given to the government, and which can again be made use of. So many aspects are discussed, and therefore what I'm trying to say is that artificial intelligence along with technology can bring so many reforms of various. So therefore, let him work on these basis, taking advantage of double A, which Ryan has said.
Right. Thank you for that comment and some suggestions. Now, before I go to Mr. Parag Tripathi, I want to share an anecdote. Many times when we are sitting either at the Claridge's Taj Mansingh or some other constitutional club, we hear anecdotes about PPT arguing in court and being humorous in court with the judges. So there is a banter that Parag Tripathi would do in court, and that is recited verbatim by other advocates to people like us. That this is what he did in court today. He lightened the weight. He went humorous with the judge. Tried to get the order that way.
He did so in the arbitration also today before me.
So he has this quality, and that makes him soak in the court atmosphere. So given that quality that you have and we all know, could you share with us, before giving one or two suggestions to Justice Gavai, any observations that you made while arguing in his court? What kind of person is he? What kind is, how does he adjudicate? Your observations and then the suggestion.
I think the two defining elements of Chief Justice Gavai are his great humanism and his constitutional. He is a great humanist. I was reading about him. I'm told on the last day in Nagpur, because he was elevated while he was at the Nagpur bench. This is November of 2000. This is May of 2019. All his personal staff had gathered outside his chamber. So the article said that he knew the individual names of each of his staff, and in respect of many of them knew about the family and their details. Now that, I think, is an extraordinary ability to reach out to people and extremely rare. This is not only about judges, it's extremely rare in any one of us.
Yes, that's true.
That's one great humanist element in him, which permeates his entire function. The second is his very strong sense of constitutionalism, which in Urdu literature is called the affection for the al-Ain, Ain being the constitution. We saw that when he dealt with the use of bulldozers against accused. And he held that, look, you cannot give collective punishment because in that house which is bulldozed, it's not only the accused, there'll be others too. And secondly, you cannot have a pre-trial punishment. So he feels strongly about things and then articulates them. The same about bail jurisprudence. He said, look, a prolonged incarceration before being pronounced guilty is not the way forward for the Constitution. And you cannot have a punishment without there being a trial. Now, these are fundamental principles we all know, but to live by them is extremely important. And I think there, as Ryan very rightly said about Abraham Lincoln, the journey, his personal journey, has been a very important one. And he's a man of very firm convictions. I'm told when his name went for judgeship in the High Court, he was younger than the cutoff of 45 years. And that sort of lingered for a couple of years. So he went and said, sir, I'd like to withdraw my name. And his father persuaded him and said that, look, you can contribute to the nation in a meaningful manner. Don't be hasty in withdrawing. And history will be delighted and history is grateful to the advice which his father, who was known as Dada Saheb, gave to him, and he accepted. Now, therefore, these are certain aspects. His other aspect of humanism, which I found extremely touching, was his initiative to go to Manipur at a time when Manipur was burning. And he went and met people. He didn't go in a seminar there and flew back. He went and met people. And I'm told that there was one lady who looked at him with tears in her eyes, and she had this amazing placard saying, welcome to your home. So when you reach out to people, people reach out to you. So it's not, people are not looking for money or shelter. People are looking for that emotional support. When it comes from a judge of the Supreme Court, who's a sitting judge, who comes all the way to Manipur to do it, it has a tremendous impact. And that is, I think, the two great elements of his persona, which permeate in the court as well. He has that sense, acute sense of justice, but he always tempers it with a sense of constitutional karuna, so that justice is given. Of course, none of us is perfect. That's well said. But he has that great desire and that zeal to do it. That is very important. Ryan very rightly said about the double A aspect. I'd like to add two more A's to it. And that, according to me, are fairly important. One is the real issue today, because given the fact that we have limited tenures, and that's not going to end very soon. We, of course, have another distinguished judge who will have a slightly longer tenure of 2 years plus. But even that, as Justice Sikri pointed out, is not enough to bring through the kind of uniform or kind of approach which you will have, say, in Singapore or indeed in US. So one is appointments. That is judicial appointments. Judicial appointments in the Supreme Court. Most Supreme Court is by and large filled up in time. But high courts, take the case of Delhi.
Tomato, sandwich and coffee.
And actual number of judges are 34 or 35. And we see every day the kind of pressure we put on the judicial system. It can't work like this. You have to give relief. You have to have more judges. And there are competent people. So the other A, which if I may use Ryan's analogy of the important A's, is access. Not mere access to justice, but if I may say tongue-in-cheek, access of fellow judges, both of the highest judiciary, the High Court, and even the District Court, access to their Chief Justice. Because that is equally important. A Chief Justice is the pater familias. So therefore, if he has access, and that takes a lot of time out of your day, but if you have access, of course, in a controlled way, it greatly helps the system and boosts the sense of togetherness and of being involved in a particular vocation for a particular purpose. So I think those two things are important. And the third point I wanted to make is what I've already said, that we have often lamented on the small tenures our chief justices get. Now, I don't think that will be or can be addressed soon, because with a 65-year age limit, there is no way you can increase the tenure, because there's so many variables there that I don't think that's going to happen in a hurry. But you can give strategic depth to that tenure by, as Dr. Sikri said, as Ryan also indicated, by having a committee of chief justices, where in appropriate case, you can also take the help as a special invitee. In so many board meetings of top companies in the world, you have special invitees of resource persons. So people like Dr. Justice Sikri, people like so many others who have had the experience, who can come and add something over the cup of tea, so that there is a continuity in the Supreme Court. There are two ways of having continuity. One is to have a continuous Chief Justice. The other has to have a continuity of ideas, which jumps from Chief Justice to Chief Justice, because you have agreed to a general game plan. And I think that is something which can be done. And I, of course, wholeheartedly endorse what has been said by my preeminent predecessor speakers here, each one of those aspects. But I do feel that 6 months is too little unless you bring strategic depth to the functioning of the Supreme Court.
Thank you for that suggestion and for speaking about him and about his, in a sense, how he holds his court and what you observed about him. We're almost out of time, so we'll take one suggestion, and we should wish him well for his tenure. That we must, in fact, because they say a lot more is needed to become the Chief Justice of India. So many variables. It is also luck, in addition to ability. You have to be really lucky. To be, in the position that he is the chief of the Chief Justice of India. I'll go to Ryan Karanjawala for his good wishes for him, and if he has any comment left.
So there were two suggestions that kept behind. One has already been alluded to both by Justice Sikri and detailed out by Parag, which is that I was suggesting, in fact, that there should be an informal collegium of future Chief Justices. The Chief Justice and the future Chief Justice, which Parag and Justice Sikri have already spoken about. So therefore, there will be a continuity, and when you hand over the baton, it won't be a change. It will just be a continuity of the earlier round. So at least in the broad fundamentals, the Supreme Court will function the way it earlier had. The second and last thing to say is, as Justice Sikri pointed out today, the court is seeing slightly troubled times because of an incident that took place in recent times. Today, when you look at the legacy of a judge or the legacy of a Chief Justice, it's not only his demeanor in court. It's not only what he said through his judgments. Today, people also see who he appointed. And therefore, it is of utmost importance that any appointment made should be of the highest quality possible. That's all I have to say. You're mute, Tarun.
And your wish for him for his tenure, because that's the last wish.
We wish him a long and happy and successful Chief Justiceship. But the kind of person he is, the access that he has to people, I wish him a very important tenure in public life thereafter, because he has a lot to contribute, not only as the chief, but even outside court in the betterment of society.
Thank you. We go to Justice Sikri for his wish for Justice Bhushan Gavai.
Yeah, first only, I think we have already discussed everything. Insofar as appointment is concerned, that A, which Parag emphasized.
4 A's.
Only 4 A's. The third, after 2 A's, he added access and
2 more, and better ones.
Yeah. No, all 4 are good. Access, even I said indirectly saying that he has already said that he'll meet everybody. And so that shows
That's true. That's true.
But what I'm trying to say is that, look, insofar as these appointments are concerned, as we know, the way things are happening in last 2-3, and he's also conscious about that because of this delay, etc. If you see, he has also given the statement that he is not averse to NJAC, which is really encouraging. And I think if there can be common ground on that, and of course, there is a judgment of the Constitution bench saying that NJAC is, it was declared, the amendment was declared unconstitutional. So they will have to see that, yes, it passes the muster of the Constitution, but it will make the things easy if executive and judiciary, they sit on that if they are of the same mind, and he can take his colleagues also along with him if they also share this opinion. Then, because I think that most of these problems are arising because of disease. So therefore, that is one thing. If he works on that, then these appointments can be facilitated. Yes, I entirely agree with Ryan, and I've always held this view: appointment should be purely on merit, and the person should be such that, yes, that the public have confidence, and the people or the legal community feels that, yes, they are proud of these appointments. So it should be that kind of message he should give. As far as wishes to him is concerned, I wished him in the morning in the Rashtrapati Bhavan, and sent him message also. And in one sentence, apart from wishing that best tenure, etc., I said, shine, shine, and shine.
Thank you. One small 10-second comment, Justice CK. You also interacted with the Prime Minister of India, who is even now the Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, on various issues into appointments. And do you think it sort of fosters a sense of, in between the executive and judiciary, healthy discussion always helps?
I think there's what I feel is that many times it is because of miscommunication, and that there's common ground is not achieved and or not. And if you are able to convince and Justice Sanjay Kaul used to say that from his experience when he was in collegium, that look, if you make out a good case and convince them that, look, we have decided this and it is because of XYZ reasons, they listen and then they accept. So therefore, there is no harm if the intentions on both sides are good. It's not that you are compromising your judicial integrity in the process, because we have to keep judicial matters aside. When they come to the court, I may have dinner with you today evening, but tomorrow morning, if your case comes to me, then sorry, I don't even know that I met you last evening. Yes. Then I go by the what was the case, what is the case, and what are the merits of the case. So if that is the approach of the judiciary, and on these administrative matters, they discuss between themselves, there is no harm in that.
Okay, thank you for actually, because we saw that time that you met the Prime Minister and there was a discussion. The visuals on TV, they were everywhere. Yeah. So of course, that's why I remembered that you also were part of such discussions between the judiciary and the executive. We go to Senior Advocate Parag Tripathi for his wishes for Justice Bhushan Gavai.
I entirely and respectfully concur with Dr. Sikri saying shine, shine, and shine. I don't think it can be put any better. There are two quick points I wanted to make. I had the pleasure of listening to Chief Justice Gavai before, of course, he was elevated, at the S.N. Bhuya Centenary Lecture in Guwahati. And there he made a very telling point, following what Ambedkar had said, because he, in a sense, is an Ambedkarite. He said, look, on 26th of January 1950, you have got a political democracy. That's there. But the real test comes when you convert and add to it social democracy, that is liberty, equality, and fraternity. That is the test of your society and your nation. And that will determine how far you'll be able to grow and develop. And I think there's a lot to be said there. Secondly, and that's my second quick point, I think a constitutionally valid NJAC is a very good idea. Because in any case, judges are not appointed in vacuum. There is an interaction between the judiciary and the executive. All that NJAC does, provided it is constitutionally valid, and that's important, because the constitution of the NJAC is the key. If it is one-sided, then there is no point. But if it is a constitutionally balanced and valid NJAC, the advantage is that you're giving a forum where the appointing judges and the executive can frankly discuss their ideas. And that's very important because it is a formal forum where the whole purpose is to see how to get the best people in the judiciary, from the bar, from the lower judiciary, from, according to me, in the case of Supreme Court, also from amongst jurists. So I think that's a great idea. But of course, it needs a lot of chiseling and fashioning, because the principle is correct. The devil, of course, as they say, lies in the detail, and that is perhaps more important. So
in a lighter vein, when you said in the Supreme Court from among the jurists also, if the Supreme Court had heard it earlier, your father would have been the first judge in the Supreme Court from that category.
Thank you so much. So I think we all join in wishing Chief Justice Gavai all the best. And we have great expectations, and I have no doubt that they'll be fulfilled.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming up with such beautiful observations and very relevant suggestions. I would like to thank Justice Arjun Kumar Sikri, Ryan Karanjawala, Managing Partner of Karanjawala and Company, Senior Advocate Parag Tripathi, who took out time and in a sense prepared and made these suggestions. Indeed, indebted to all of you for making time and joining for this special show for Justice Bhushan Gavai. Indeed, it was a pleasure doing this show, and this would be remembered. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much.